Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everyone. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. We're going to see how chat goes today. My daughter is in a pretty terrible mood. She's down for a nap right now, but we're going to see how this goes, right? Hopefully she stays down for a nap and chills out. But little Ellie is feeling not in a great mood at the moment. So there is a slim chance I might have to jump out of chat if you know the nap doesn't end up working out, but I think we'll be all right. So anyways, hello everyone. If you've never been part of the chat before, basically the way this works, you just drop your comments, you drop your questions down into chat, and I get to as many questions as possible. This is a very interactive chat. It's really driven all by you, right? Your comments, your questions is 100% what drives what we talk about. Two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You literally just type your question like anything else. You hit enter and it drops into chat. However, if you want to 100% guarantee that you get your question answered, that is what the super chat option is for. You just type in a donation of whatever amount you want. I get a notification and I hit super chats first, right? They get the priority as soon as they drop. However, as always, don't feel obligated to do that. That's just one way to guarantee you get your question answered, but I hit as many free questions as I possibly can in chat. Now, what can we talk about today? Of course, the big news, right? The biggest, the latest, the breaking news is a new report out of Bloomberg that Nintendo will be launching a new Nintendo Switch model in time for this holiday period. So by the end of the year, according to this report, the new Switch Pro, as we're all kind of calling it, who knows what Nintendo will call it, sounds like it is gonna hit this year. So a whole bunch we can talk about with that report. First of all, they are saying that it is a 7-inch OLED screen, so it is a bigger screen than the current Switch and the Switch Lite. It is the same resolution, 720p. Pixel density, of course, is going to be a little bit lower because the screen itself is bigger, which is being met online in various ways. We can talk about that. However, a couple other interesting things out of this report in regards to the Switch Pro. Sounds like it is going to be capable in some way of outputting 4K graphics. Now, is that going to be DLSS? Is it going to be actually natively running these games? We actually don't know 100% for sure yet. The report did not go that into detail, but it did straight up say 4K ultra high definition graphics. And we also saw like Jeff Grubb, for example, piggyback off of that online and basically say that he's hearing the same thing. So in some way, this is going to be capable of 4K, only, however, when paired with a TV, right? In portable mode, it's still just going to be 720p. It is not going to be 4K. Only 4K when you connect it to a TV. So we can talk about that. What's the pricing going to be? What games are we expecting to launch with it, etc., etc. The Elden Ring trailer leaked, so there's been a whole bunch of discussion about that online. We've been wondering if Elden Ring is even real, if it exists, what capacity it exists for some time now, and we have actually seen the game. So we can talk about Elden Ring. We can talk about PlayStation removing movies and such off of the PlayStation Network. You're not going to be able to buy those in the future. I'm curious how much that affects people. I haven't bought much off of there, but I know some people do. I have rented movies off of there before too. But it has been a while since I've done anything like that. But yeah, we can talk about whatever, right? This is driven by you. So drop your comments, drop your questions down into chat. Let's get them rocking. Let's get going, and let's start talking. Okay, so we have 3 super chats right off the bat. So I'm going to hit those first. First of all, Kellegrim with a 20. What is up, Kellegrim? It is so good to see you, buddy. And thank you for the super chat, as always. It means a ton to me. A 22, Kellegrim. That's a big one, man. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope you're doing good. Saying, hey, Benji, what do you think about Sony dropping movie and TV purchases from PlayStation Network? Do you think they'll start a separate subscription service for those features or lump it into PS Plus and raise the price? Have a nice day. Thank you so much, buddy. So a few of my thoughts here on this It basically seems like my hunch, right? This is just a hunch, this is just a guess, but I am assuming that that wasn't getting that much interaction, right? Put it this way. If Sony was making tons of money off of people buying movies and buying seasons worth of TV on their PlayStation networks, they wouldn't be dropping this, right? This says to me that they're not really seeing much of a return on that. Maybe they're making a little bit of money, but not much. And keep in mind, to run the storefront, to be able to do those types of things, they're having to form partnerships with these companies. They're having to form deals. They're having to, have they take a cut, Sony does, as well as whatever company is selling whatever on there. So there's a whole lot to it. It's a lot of work, and probably they're just not getting a ton of money back, right? If anything, maybe they're breaking even or making a little bit, but not enough that they feel it is 100% worth their effort. So keep in mind, Telegram, they just recently purchased Crunchyroll, and they basically are becoming an anime giant, right? So my hunch is that the big thing they're going to start pushing is subscribing, right, to them, to their anime streaming. Is there going to be more stuff with TV and movies like rolled into PS Plus or anything like that, raising the price? I'm guessing no. I think they're just kind of pivoting away from that, except for maybe they do something with Sony Pictures, right? Because they do have their own movie studio. Like Sony themselves creates their own films. So maybe they're going to incorporate the Sony side of things that they themselves do as perk bonuses in PS Plus. I mean, that would actually be very interesting, right? We have seen that Sony is getting very aggressive with PS Plus. If you look at the offerings that they've had the last few months, they have been very, very good. They've been putting big games like Control Ultimate Edition and things like that day one on PS Plus. They just announced Final Fantasy VII Remake as a free game this month, which is a huge title. So clearly Sony is really investing into PS Plus, and that would also be an interesting perk, right? Maybe if you're a PS Plus subscriber, once a Sony Pictures movie comes out on DVD or streaming, maybe you just get that as part of your PS Plus. That would be interesting, but I'm not expecting them to do like a whole giant new streaming tier with movies incorporated, right? Unless it's going to be some sort of partnership with their whole Funimation Crunchyroll streaming thing, right? Maybe they're going to incorporate that side into Plus, but I don't think we're going to get a whole separate thing. They're probably just not making enough money on it. So hope that answers your question, and thank you so much, Telegram. I hope you're doing good, man. Kevin Kanye here with a $4.99 super chat, $5. Thank you so much, Kevin. Good to see you. How can Nintendo meet pro demand? Yeah, this is an interesting question, right? When OG Switch still struggles with stock, will OG stock suffer even more because of resources / parts diverted to pro? Kevin, it's a great question. So, couple thoughts here. Let's look at two different scenarios with the Switch Pro, right? Because I feel like there's two different ways this can go. First of all, there's the whole, is the Switch Pro, whatever this model is it going to just straight up replace the current Switch? Keep in mind, we didn't get anything in that report that flat out says this is an additional SKU, or if the standard regular Switch that's been around since 2017, if that's kind of going away and it's going to be this model and the Lite. So if they do that, right, if this is coming in and it's just replacing the regular Switch, then you're not going to have as much competition in terms of resources and parts like you're talking about, because they can barely keep up with the regular Switch, as not having 3 SKUs. You're basically just going to stop making the regular Switch and it's just Switch Pro from here on out. That is one thought process that could go into this. I would say if that is the way they're going, I'm not expecting a huge jump in terms of the actual parts that are in this machine, because they're not going to just replace a $300 model and introduce a more expensive one and the Lite, right? This would come in at $299 if they're doing that. So if that happens, I think it's just going to be basically upscaling games to 4K, some sort of DLSS or something like that implementation, maybe slightly faster on the CPU and things like that, but I wouldn't expect like a huge jump in tech, because they're going to have to keep the price the same. The other way of looking at this, Kevin, is that it is going to be a third additional tier, right? You're going to have the light, you're going to have the regular, and then you're going to have the pro on top of that. And yeah, if Kevin, that could become a challenge of balancing 3 SKUs at the same time, right? 2 is already a challenge whenever you look at, for example, the PlayStation 5, right? PlayStation 5 is basically almost completely the standard PS5, with digital edition making up a very small percentage of that. Now, I don't think that's only because of parts, because essentially the parts are the same outside of the disc drive, right? I think the main reason for that is because they're taking a bigger loss on the digital edition. But even with Xbox, right, Series X and Series S, you can also have that where it's 2 different actual systems, like same architecture, but there are bigger differences, kind of like what we would see between a Switch and a Switch Pro. And that is like a challenge, right? You're not seeing tons of X's or tons of S's in stock and not one or the other. It's like, it's just hard, right? Even Switch, there's been times that the light and the regular model are completely sold out. So if they're doing 3 tiers, that is going to be a challenge. That is going to absolutely be a challenge to keep all these in stock. What they're going to do to counteract that, I'm not 100% sure. It is going to be tough, right? Shortages this year on everything is brutal. And if you're introducing another tier, holy cow. I think one part of this report, if I'm remembering correctly, is that they wanted to have at least 1 million units ready by, I don't remember the exact month. I think they said in the initial batch, it was at least 1 million. So that's not that many, y'all. With how high the demand for Switch is, I sent out a tweet about this. Good luck finding a Switch Pro in 2021. The demand is already insane, and 1 million early on is not very many units. So I'm sure that they're planning on having more than 1 million by the time we hit launch, but that's going to be a slow ramp up. So Kevin, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I expect huge shortages on this Switch Pro. Huge. I think it's going to be darn near impossible to get this year. Timmer72299 with a 2 super chat, just saying keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Timmer. You keep up the awesome work as well. Keep digging up that amazing stuff over there on Twitter, through LinkedIn and stuff like that. Thank you so much, Timmer, for the support as always. You are awesome, man. And then you had also another follow-up super chat right after that of 5. Thank you so much, Timmer, saying, do you expect another Middle-earth game? Middle-earth Shadow of War sold more than 3+ million units, plus thoughts on Epic buying Mediatonic Fall Guys. Yeah, this is 2 great questions here, which is unsurprising coming from you, Timmer. So do I expect another Middle-earth game? Here's what I'll say. I definitely expect another Lord of the Rings game from WB and Monolith, right? Now, whether that's going to be called, Middle Earth hyphen whatever, I'm not sure. But I definitely think we are going to see another, Lord of the Rings game out of that studio published by WB, because Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, both of those were actually pretty big successes. So, they weren't necessarily those kind of games that sell 20 million units or whatever, but they sold quite a bit. And Lord of the Rings, as we know, is a gigantic IP. Like when that 4K Blu-ray set came out, it's been like sold out everywhere constantly, literally since it came out, right? People love Lord of the Rings. And there's also a huge Amazon TV series on the way as well, right? So that's just going to bring fresh eyes onto that IP, one that's been around for, decades and decades and decades, that so many people love. So it would be crazy to not have, if you have rights to that IP, it's crazy to not have something in production for it. So I'm 100% expecting another Lord of the Rings game from WB and Monolith. I'm just not 100% sure if it's going to be like Middle Earth 3, right? Following up on the story of the first 2 games, or if it's going to be something completely different. Here's the main thing I hope, Timmer. I feel like we've gotten enough Mordor in those 2 games, right? It was very cool seeing Mordor because, to be honest, a lot of the Lord of the Rings games and content we've had in the past didn't really go too in-depth on Mordor, right? It was actually an area that was somewhat unexplored. Like, even in the books and stuff, you don't get to Mordor until, very late. So it was cool, at first, really diving into that. But now that we've had 2 games worth, and they're pretty decently long games, right? They're action RPGs. I hope whatever this next Lord of the Rings game is really has nothing to do with Mordor, right? Going somewhere completely different, giving us a fresh perspective, new areas to explore, right? How cool would it be to see places like Rivendell, right? Like to see where the elves are and things like this. So that's my main hope there. And then in terms of Epic buying Mediatonic, this reminds me, I tweeted about it. It reminds me a lot of when Epic bought Psyonix, the makers of Rocket League. Now, are there some differences here? Absolutely, right? Epic and Psyonix already kind of had a working relationship a bit before that. And then this Mediatonic one was somewhat out of nowhere in that there wasn't like a big, strong relationship there. Kind of just swooped in and bought them. But it reminds me of that because it was a, indie-sized, smaller team studio that had a big, successful game that was ramping up. And Epic saw probably a very good deal on Psyonix and now a very good deal on Mediatonic, where these were teams that have proven they can launch a big game that also aren't super expensive, right? Like at the time, Epic's buying Mediatonic, it ain't going to cost them even a fraction of what it would cost to buy like a big giant, independent AAA developer, right? They're going to be able to get this for much cheaper, and they probably feel they can build Mediatonic up naturally to be an even bigger studio for them, and also to get those rights for Fall Guys, right? And I expect we're probably going to see Fall Guys go free to play. I don't know if that's going to happen like tomorrow. I'm not saying Fall Guys is going to be free to play immediately. But if you look at Epic's business model, they like free to play, right? That seems to be something that really works out for them. So I would expect at some point in the near future, Fall Guys is going to go free to play. Thank you so much, Timmer, for those 2 questions and the super chat. All right, Killian Butler here with a 20 super chat. Holy cow, Killian, that's a beefy one. Thank you so much, Killian. Saying, hey, Benji, PS Plus monthly games have been amazing lately. Do you think Sony are spending more to get these monthly games because their goal is to get enough subs so they can eventually turn the service into a Game Pass? Okay, this is a fascinating question, Killian. So 2 thoughts on this. Yes, clearly they are spending more money, right? If you look at the games that have been launching in Game Pass, in Plus lately, one big takeaway is they're getting really fresh games, right? It used to be PS Plus would get some very good, very nice games in Plus, but you would have to wait quite a while, right? You would have a pretty long wait time for these games to be free on Plus, kind of like what we'd see with games with Gold, right? They'd be a lot of 6-month, 12-month or more later games. You're still seeing some of that, but you're also seeing some really fresh stuff, right? Like, I know it's a year old for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but trust me, that was not cheap, right? Control Ultimate Edition, yes, it was an older game, but it was the Ultimate Edition, the one that had just came out, right? It was completely fresh, launching into the service. Bugsnax, smaller indie-sized game, but launched into the service, right? PlayStation All-Stars, or not All-Stars, I wish it was PlayStation All-Stars. Destruction All-Stars, day one on the service. So you're clearly seeing that they're trying to make PS Plus value with these free games go up. And it's actually like the exact reverse of Games with Gold. Games with Gold's overall quality has just completely fallen off the face of the earth. And I'm not saying that there's not good games that launch in Games with Gold sometimes, but they are really going like small indie or very old, right? There's not really anything that's going into Games with Gold that's really recent, with a few exceptions, very, very few. And PS Plus is like the exact opposite. You can tell Sony's investing more into that. With Game Pass, that is the main reason you're seeing Games with Gold games really quality drop. I think Microsoft internally is like, hey, first of all, Game Pass is like our future, so we're going to pour way more money into Game Pass just naturally because we want that to grow. And then B, also, I feel like by lowering the quote-quote value of Games with Gold, you also get those people that aren't converting to be like, man, these Games with Gold games aren't quite what I was hoping for, but look at Game Pass. Maybe I need to get on that Game Pass train, right? So they're clearly trying to funnel people away from Gold into Game Pass, right? Remember that huge price hike? That was also a factor, right? I believe that was also part of why the Gold got that giant jump in price, was to get them to be like, yo, look at how much better value Game Pass is, right? Get Game Pass Ultimate. Don't worry about just subscribing to Gold. So all of these, I think, are factors. And will Sony turn PS Plus into a Game Pass competitor? This is a great question. I mean, look at the PlayStation Plus collection that you get right now, right? I would say that that's entirely possible. Yes, it could be that their long-term plan is for PS Plus to become such a giant value that it is perceived as a Game Pass competitor. Now, is it ever going to hit the level Game Pass is where you're getting Horizon Forbidden West 3, right? Whatever the next Horizon is, where you're getting God of War 3, where you're getting Spider-Man 2 day one as a Plus subscriber, how Microsoft does with Game Pass. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Or if that does happen, I think it's a far future concept, right? I don't think we see that until the end of the PS5 life cycle, or maybe even the PS6, because the thing is, Sony makes so much money off of selling games, right? Day one, right? You're getting games from Sony that are selling 15, 20 million units at, 30, 40, 50, $60 over their lifetime, right? So they're making so much money off individual game sales. It would be shocking to me to see them just put that day one on Plus. So I don't know if that you're ever going to see PlayStation Plus just straight up be a true competitor to Game Pass in that sense, but I think they are positioning Plus to be a lot more competitive, right? So, yeah, I think so. All right, super chats are clear. Let me hit some free questions. Thank you for those super chats, everybody. All right, Hamish Lee Ford. Hey, Benji, hope you're doing great. I'm doing super good. It's warming up around here, thankfully, finally. I was able to go outside this afternoon and get some sun. It was so nice. Chances of Xbox putting Deathloop to PC Game Pass day one. Hamish, that's all going to come down to the contract, right? It's all going to come down to what that Sony and Bethesda contract is. I would say if there's nothing in the terminology that forbids it, right? And trust me, Microsoft's lawyers are going to be reading very closely. So, yeah, is it time PC or is it on PC day one? It's PC day one too, right? I just want to make sure of that first of all. I'm pretty sure it is available on PC day one, just console exclusive, right? Let me just double check that. I want to make sure. Yep, it's coming to Windows. Yep. PlayStation 5 Windows. Yeah. So it's day one on PC. I would say if there's nothing in the terminology that forbids it, right? If there's nothing in that contract that straight up basically forbids it going to any other service, you might see Microsoft do that. Yeah. Because, I mean, they're going to own Bethesda by the time Deathloop comes out. However, if that Sony terminology basically forbids something like that, they're just not going to be able to, right? It's all going to come down to that contract, I feel like. I feel like if they can, they're going to. Because right now, Microsoft's not going to push Deathloop heavy, even once they own Bethesda, because it is a PlayStation exclusive, right, on consoles. So that you're not going to see, I don't think, Microsoft put a giant focus on marketing that game. However, if they can tie that to Game Pass on PC, that's a different scenario, right? You will see them, I think, push that pretty heavy, especially to kind of counteract Sony's exclusivity. They can be like, hey, look, Game Pass, Xbox's partnership, we have Deathloop. So it's all going to come down to that contract, Hamish Lee Ford, and who knows, right? That's not something we have knowledge to. So really depends on what that contract says. The notorious DMG. Is there any question how Nintendo is going to run away with holiday season sales if this Switch releases before holidays? You know what, the notorious DMG? I'll tell you what, if this Switch Pro really does hit before holidays, if it really is a pretty substantial upgrade, and if it is priced well with a big game next to it, so it needs to have a good game with it as well, I think. And as long as they have stock, yeah, I would expect Nintendo Switch to yet again be the number one console in sales this holiday. Yep, I think it will outsell PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. Yep, if, again, we need all those factors, Switch is going to do a minimum of 20 million this year, right? It's going to do a minimum of 20 million. Could even be over that, but I would be utterly shocked to see Switch do less than 20 million this year. Xbox Series X and S and PS5 are still $500, and I don't expect that to change this holiday. I mean, S is cheaper, right? But Series X, PS5, $500. I don't think that goes down, right? This is only going to be their first full year, and they can't even keep up with production as it is now. So I'm not expecting any price drops or anything like that this holiday season. Maybe you're going to see promotions like get a free game with it. I do expect that, right? I expect some kind of bundles, but I don't expect any kind of price drop. So you're going to have Switch positioned price-wise cheaper and also with a new SKU on the market. But I also think to lock it in, right, to 100% guarantee it, they need a big game. If Breath of the Wild 2 somehow squeezes in this year, it's a lock. It's a lock. Yeah, Switch is going to be the best-selling platform. And even without Breath of the Wild 2, probably for the holidays, right? Probably still. But I would say if they have this revision in Breath of the Wild 2, there's no question. It's a lock. They're going to. Sounds PP7 here with a free question. I don't know if there's no more questions that have been dropped into chat or if I'm not getting notifications anymore. Can someone type anything? I don't really care. Can someone just comment down into chat to see it move just to make sure my chat's not broken? Because right now chat hasn't scrolled at all for me. It's the exact same spot it was a while ago. So if someone could just comment down in chat, like I said, I don't really care what it is. You can comment anything. I just want to make sure my chat's not busted so I'm not missing questions. And while I wait for that, I'm going to hit Silence PP7. What do you make of Take-Two's comments regarding remasters, and what are the chances Max Payne, Manhunt, Grand Theft Auto, and Red Dead receive the Mafia Definitive Edition treatment? Also, how did Mafia Definitive Edition perform sales-wise? Thank you so much, Silence PP7, for the questions. Thanks for always being in chat. Couple things here. So for anyone that missed it, basically what Take-Two said is they're not in the business of doing like cheap re-releases, right? Where basically they said if they're going to do remasters and they're going to do remakes, they want it to be like quality, right? They don't want it to just be like a rushed, cheap kind of cash grab type thing. Like they want to make quality remakes, remasters, things like this, right? So what are the chances that we're going to see new ones? Here's what I'll say: high. So in regards to how did Mafia Definitive Edition perform, I was covering the Take-Two conference call. I was on that conference call when they reported their earnings, and Take-Two straight up said during the conference call that Mafia Definitive Edition and Trilogy performed well. So it clearly at least met their expectations and probably outperformed them, because here's the thing: if a game doesn't do well for you and you're on your earnings call, you just don't mention it, right? You just kind of don't bring it up. At worst case scenario, if you feel like you have to say something, like if it's a giant release, then you say, unfortunately, you know, this game missed expectations, but then this other game outperformed, right? You still try to make something look good on it. And if it's not like a giant flagship, the biggest game you're going to launch, if it's like a smaller project like this Mafia Definitive Edition, you just don't mention it. You just go on the conference call, and unless an investor specifically asks for info on it, you kind of just brush it under the rug. But they went out of their way to say that Mafia performed well for them. So that tells me that they're happy with its sales. I definitely think we're going to see more remakes and remasters from them. Also on that conference call, someone straight up asked the CEO, where are Grand Theft Auto remakes? I feel like that would sell a lot. And their response was basically a non-answer. But he basically said that, he sees their point to the person asking the question, and he said he would leave any further announcements up to Rockstar. What this says to me, Sounds PP7, is I believe that Take-Two wants Grand Theft Auto remakes. The question is if they can get Rockstar to do it, right? Rockstar is very busy. Rockstar has giant projects in the pipeline. Are they really going to spend time going back and remaking or doing a big remaster on a big project that like Grand Theft Auto 4 or, Vice City or any of these would be, right? They would be pretty beefy projects. You're not going to do that for cheap. So It could happen for Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead, but I'd say it might be tough. But I think you're going to see something, yes. You're going to see something more from them. All right, we had a super chat drop, so it looks like... Okay, sweet. Sweet. Everyone's saying hi, howdy, hello, hello. Cool. Looks like chat's not busted. Good. I was a little bit worried for a second because it wasn't scrolling. Benji with a 15 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Thank you, thank you. Saying, hi, Benji. What will be Switch Pro's price? 400, as people seem okay paying more for hardware this gen. Rumor about a new next-gen Assassin's Creed game set in Japan. Can Ubi go for a next-gen only this early? So 2 questions here. In regards to Switch Pro price, I mentioned this earlier in the chat. If the Switch Pro is just replacing the current Switch, right? If it's basically the same Switch, but saying it's DLSS equipped to kind of like, use AI upscaling to get 4K. If it's something like that, I expect it to just be $300, right? Even with the OLED screen, because the prices have come down a lot on the smaller OLEDs, I think it'll just be a $300 system if it's replacing the current Switch. However, if it is an additional SKU, right, if they're going up a tier, and this isn't just DLSS, if it's also getting a quite nice CPU upgrade or a quite nice GPU upgrade on top of that, then yes, 400 would be what I would expect. And I actually think that Nintendo could pull that off because they have such a wide range, okay? They've got the $199 Lite, they would have the $299 regular, and then you would have that $399 Pro. You're really covering like all of your bases, right? You have this super cheap Lite in there for really budget conscious people and for people that don't care about connecting it to a TV. They just want a portable system. You would still have that $300 main SKU to hit the vast bulk of your consumers. And then you would have that $400 Pro for the real hardcore enthusiasts, right? The people that are your Metroid fans, the people that are your Zelda fans, the people that are your Smash Brothers fans, right? That want to get the best experience in those really big Nintendo games. You would have that tier there as well. So I actually think they could get away with it. Will they go that path? I'm not sure, right? It's hard to say because even though this report from Bloomberg had a lot of really good, really interesting information, there is still a few components we're missing, right? We still don't know exactly what they mean by 4K Ultra HD graphics. We still don't know exactly what all the improvements are in there outside of the screen. So we're still just lacking a little bit of context to really nail down the price. But those are my 2 thoughts, right? $299 if it's replacing current Switch. $399 probably if it is a whole new tier. So, and in regards to the next gen only Assassin's Creed game, yeah, I expect the next Assassin's Creed to be next gen only. Keep in mind, they're going to skip a year. There's not going to be an Assassin's Creed this year, probably. Though that is actually a good question. Did the rumor say that it's going to launch in 2022 or 2021? Because I'm not expecting a new Assassin's Creed this year, to be honest with you. It could happen, but I'm not expecting it. I am expecting the next Assassin's Creed game in 2022, especially with all the delays from COVID. So if this is a 2022 game, yeah, they could definitely get away with next gen only by 2022. The install base isn't going to be ginormous, but it's going to be bigger, right? It's going to be a lot bigger than what it is now. You're talking over a year from now. If it's 2021, I will be shocked if it's next gen only. I'd be very surprised. I expect 95% of games this year to be cross-gen, right? Like, I'm expecting only a few next-gen exclusives, and we've basically already seen that in the announced games, right? You've got Returnal that's next-gen exclusive that's coming out. You got Ratchet, and outside of that, for this year, there's really not much, right? Basically, everything else is cross-gen, including Horizon, right? There's still the big question mark on God of War, but basically everything else is cross-gen. So I'd be very surprised if it's next-gen only this year. But if it's 2022, like I'm expecting, they can get away with next-gen only. 2022, you're going to definitely start to see some pretty big next-gen only games, right? You're going to start to see that by 2022. And if it's going to be set in Japan, I have no idea. I'll tell you what. It's going to have to be dang good if it's in Japan after Ghost of Tsushima. People's expectations would be very high now, right? Ghost of Tsushima, I feel like, fulfilled what a lot of people wanted a Japanese Assassin's Creed game to be. So after Ghost of Tsushima came out and was so wildly successful, if they're going to do Assassin's Creed Japan, it better be real good, right? It better be real good because you know that's going to be the direct comparison everyone makes, whether it's reviewers, whether it's just people talking on forums or on Twitter. Everyone's going to look at Assassin's Creed Japan and they're going to directly compare it to Ghost of Tsushima in terms of quality, right? They're going to be like, all right, is the combat as good as Ghost of Tsushima? All right, is the story as good as Ghost of Tsushima? So they better make sure it's real good because Ghost of Tsushima was great. So it's going to have to be darn good if they're going that direction. Killian Butler with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Killian. I think that's your second one of the chat. Holy cow. Thank you, Killian. Thank you so much. Saying, I have a UFC question. I love UFC and MMA questions. These are like my favorite because I don't get a ton of them and y'all know I'm obsessed with it. Don't worry, people that are only here for gaming, I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on MMA, right? I'm going to make it quick, but I love fighting. So I have a UFC question. What are your predictions for UFC 259 title fights? I've got Sterling via decision, Nunes via KO, and Izzy via KO. So hyped to watch. So first of all, Killian, this card is nuts, right? This card is absolutely insane. 3 title fights, and outside of those 3 title fights, the undercard is amazing too, right? I mean, the rest of the main card is awesome, and even the prelims. Dude, this card is so stacked that former champion Dominic Cruz is on the prelims, and also former #1 contender multiple time Joseph Benavidez is on the prelims. They're not even on the main card. So that shows you like how stacked this card is. It's ridiculous. I'm buying it and I cannot wait. So my predictions for the title fights, yeah, let's go the same order you did. I am also predicting Sterling, but I've got Aljamain Sterling by submission. I think he's going to submit Petr Yan in the third round, but I'll be honest, that's a hard one to pick. I mean, that is hard. I won't be shocked at all if it goes the other way. I feel like these two are very competitive. I'm not expecting this fight to be a blowout one way or the other. I think it's going to be a very technical fight. But I am predicting Sterling, but I'm going to go submission. I think he is going to eventually be able to get him down. And once he's down, Aljamain Sterling is a beast on the ground, right? Yeah, Nunes by KO for sure, and probably fairly quickly. I'm going to go Amanda Nunes, probably second round knockout. I think Megan Anderson is tough, so I think she's going to be able to make it out of that first round, but I'm going to guess second round knockout for Amanda. That to me is pretty easy. I'd be utterly shocked if it goes the other way. And then Izzy versus Jan Blachowicz, or however you say his name, right? His last name's hard to say. I'm picking Izzy by KO. Israel Adesanya's like the Matrix. I mean, the dude is unbelievable. Here's what I'll say, though, Killian. I think people are actually sleeping on Jan. I feel like this actually could be a very, very hard fight for Izzy. I'll be very surprised if Izzy makes this look easy. And also, I actually won't be shocked if Jan catches him and knocks him out. Izzy's chin isn't the most amazing thing in the world, to be honest with you. Izzy is hard to hit, which really helps him, but he has been KO'd. He has been KO'd in kickboxing. So we know that chin can be touched. So I'm going to pick Izzy, but he needs to be very careful. There's a reason why Jan's called the Polish Hammer. It takes one. It takes one from Jan. So he needs to be very slick and very defensively sound. Thank you for the question. All right, don't worry, gaming people. We're back to gaming. And thank you so much, Killian. All right, back to some free questions. How long have we been going? Only 38 minutes. We're good. We're good. We're way good. We still have plenty of time for chat. And thank you, everyone who has shown up. Like the video if you like doing these chats, and subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed. We do one of these every single week. All right, the unknown. Benji-Sales. Do you think Nintendo will try and leverage their position in Japan, and try to get Persona 6 and Dragon Quest 12 as exclusive? You know, this has been a very interesting question, Unknown, that I've also been pondering. Here's what I think. I think Persona 6 is going to be PS5 exclusive because I think Sony is going to really spend the money to get it. Here's the thing. I know that Persona, mainline Persona, has always been attached to PlayStation, right? It is, right? It is a PlayStation game. You see spin-offs go other places, and we have seen things like Persona 4 now come to Steam. But when all's said and done, I think Sony absolutely themselves views Persona as like theirs, right? And when I say theirs, I mean a game that they think really contributes to their console. I don't think it's going to be free. A lot of times in the past, Persona made it free. I don't think Sony was paying for exclusivity for things like Persona 5. I'd be surprised. Maybe they, helped out with some marketing and things like that, but I don't know that Sony like actually straight up paid to make Persona 5 exclusive. I think that just kind of was a natural fit. Same thing with Persona 4. Persona 6, I think Sony's going to have to pay. Yes. I mean, Switch is so utterly dominant in Japan. To be perfectly frank with you, unless you are getting money from Sony, it is silly to skip the Switch. It is. It's just financially silly to do. It is so dominant. I mean, Switch is like, nothing's even close to it in Japan. And a lot of these games are successful outside of the Japanese market, but they're also very successful in Japan, right? Dragon Quest, Persona, etc. I think Sony is gonna pay, but I think they're gonna pay and keep Persona 6 exclusive. Dragon Quest 12, I think, is definitely going to Switch. 1000%, which isn't shocking, right? Dragon Quest 11 did. The question is it going to be exclusive? I don't know. Sony's been spending a lot of money on Square Enix stuff, right? So here's what I'll say. If Sony does want to stay competitive in any capacity in Japan, they have to have Dragon Quest, right? They have to have Dragon Quest and they have to have Monster Hunter. So, Monster Hunter World 2, clearly that's going to be on PS5. So I don't think they're really hurting in regards to Monster Hunter. It's going to happen, okay? But Dragon Quest is a bigger question. Here's the thing. If Sony wants to guarantee that they have some sort of Japanese presence, they got to have it. So I still think Dragon Quest will be multi-platform because I think Square Enix is also going to be looking at overseas sales. And yeah, Switch is huge, but also PlayStation's a huge brand overseas. So my guess, Persona 6 stays exclusive to PlayStation because they spend it. And Dragon Quest 12, I think, is multi-plat. But you never know. Nintendo might come in and do timed exclusivity. You never know. They could do that. They could do timed. That's what Monster Hunter Rise is. Rise isn't coming to PlayStation, but it is going to PC. But that's timed exclusive. So maybe you see Nintendo get timed exclusive on Dragon Quest. But I think at some point it is going to hit PlayStation. Ryan Epps saying, Benji, let's go get hype. What is up, Ryan Epps? Good to see you. Good to see you. Let me make sure I haven't missed any super chats. Nope. Super chats are good. Batwing, Benji, do you think publishers will hold back on new game announcements across the board because COVID and work from home situation? Yeah, that's definitely Batwing. That's part of why 2021 is looking slim. 2021 every day looks more slim. Guilty Gear Strive just got delayed, right? It's this year still, but again, it got pushed from April and now it's June. So many delays. I mean, 2021, when we look back on it, I think we could have an explosive holiday because basically I think a lot of games that we're targeting the first half of the year, even that were unannounced, are probably now going to hit in the second half, right? They're still going to come, but they're going to be later than originally intended. So I think we could have a situation where it's like starting in September, right? September, October, November, December. Maybe those like last 4 months are crazy because so many games hit. But I think when we look back on 2021, this first chunk of the year, ooh, that's going to be looked at as light, okay? And like I said, it keeps getting lighter by the day. We just had a game move from April to June. So I think that a lot of games that were originally targeting this year, especially in the back half of the year, have been completely skipped their announcements, right? Maybe they were going to be announced by now, but they just flat out haven't been. So Batwing, yeah, I think we're going to definitely see very few announcements this year for big games. You're going to see some still. Don't get me wrong. You're still going to get new announcements. But, yeah, Yeah, publishers are definitely going to have less to announce because so many things got hit. You know, Phil Spencer was right on the money when Phil Spencer said last year, he said during an interview last year, he said the real impact you're going to see from COVID isn't going to be in 2020. He said it's going to be in 2021. And it's because those games that were targeting 2020 were like in the polishing phase, right? The main really hard to do stuff from work from home, like a lot of the mocap, a lot of, you know, that type of stuff that's really hard to do in a work from home environment. Those games had basically already done that, right? So they were really just in polishing phase, which is still a challenge to do from work from home, but you can do it. Whereas keep in mind, if you were a game that was targeting 2021, you still had a lot of work to do, right? Because when COVID hit in 2020, you were still over a year away, like more than a year. So you still had a ton of work to do on those games. So those games that were hitting in 2021, those are the ones that have been really hurt. So yeah, I'm not expecting this year to be a blowout for crazy announcements, just like it's not going to be a blowout for games until the end of the year, because we're already seeing it, right? The first half of this year is overall weak. There are some very good things in there, but when you look at it compared to most years, very weak, very, very weak start to the year. We just had 2 super chats drop. Holy cow, thank you so much. 2 of them. Let me hit those super chats. First of all, JCat with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, JCat. Thank you for helping out now with modding along with Split End. Thank you so much. It's so great to see you in chat. JCat been here from the beginning, the very early days of my channel. And now that I'm talking about this, y'all, the 2-year anniversary of my YouTube channel is right around the corner, March 19th, I think. So we are almost at 2 years of this channel. Thank you everyone for who has supported it over the last 2 years, who subscribed to my channel the last 2 years, who makes it out to these chats like every week. Thank you guys. It really means a lot to me. All right, so JCat with that 5. Can we talk about the recent boost to PS5 in Japan? Yep. Yeah, it is noteworthy. It's not touching Switch, but Sony is sending more units. They need a bigger install base for Final Fantasy 16. JCat, I think you're right on the money. You are absolutely right on the money. So anyone that missed it, I did send out a tweet on this, and I sent out a tweet on the line graph looking at the weekly sales of PS5 every week in Japan since the start of the year. And what you are seeing in these last, few weeks is a big jump for PlayStation, like big. It's over 30,000 units last week, which is very nice, especially for a $500 console, right? Like JCat says, it's nowhere near matching Switch, right? Switch is still doing more than double that, right? PS5 was 33,000, and if I'm remembering right, Switch last week was like 78,000, somewhere around there. So it's still doing, more than double the PS5. But that's a big improvement, guys. Early in this year, if you look at those first, couple weeks in Japan, it was lucky to hit like barely over 10,000. So we're seeing like a 3x increase. In the last 3 weeks, PS5 has had consecutive growth every week, right? So, this week was higher than last week. Last week was higher than the week before that. So it's moving in the right direction. It's very encouraging to see. Clearly, it doesn't come from new releases. It's just more consoles being shipped to Japan. And JCat, I think you're right on the money. Final Fantasy 16, I think, is going to play an element into this. Because Final Fantasy 16 can't be too far away, right? I have a hunch that game was targeting 2021. I don't think it's going to be now. I think it's going to be 2022. But, yeah, they're going to need to build up that market for games like Final Fantasy 16 and even Resident Evil 8 Village coming up, right? I know Village isn't going to be like this big ginormous thing in Japan. Resident Evil does decent in Japan, but it's not like a Monster Hunter or a Dragon Quest or, anything like a Final Fantasy, but it's still a pretty decently large franchise in Japan. So yeah, clearly Sony is prioritizing sending more units over there, and it's very much needed. If they want games like Resident Evil 8 Village to do well on PS5, I know it's cross-gen, but if they want it to do good, if they want Final Fantasy 16 to have any kind of success in Japan, they're gonna have to get units over there. So good to see. I hope Sony keeps it up, and we'll see, right? We're gonna have to keep an eye on the long-term trend, but overall things are looking much better in Japan than they started. I mean, the beginning of this year was scary. Like PS5 sales were so low in Japan, it was like worrying how low it was. But they're on the right track. So hopefully we see that continue throughout the year. Ryan Epps with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you so much. Benji, thanks for the shout out, homie. Hope all's well. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Here's a question. What did you think of the Elden Ring leaked footage? Yeah, so we're finally going to dive into some Elden Ring. Let's talk about this really quick. So first, let's talk about what happened. Okay, so this was a few days ago, and we had been getting reports, right, that Elden Ring was going to be shown soon. People in the know had seen things, right? Then you see VGC. They came out first and reported, hey, there's a straight up trailer that's being passed around behind the scenes. Literally, as soon as I saw that, it's funny because I sent out a tweet the same day it ended up leaking. I sent out a tweet and I was like, if this is true that it's being passed around chat groups, this thing's gonna leak, right? As someone who in the past at times has been part of insider groups, I don't consider myself one that, really anymore. Do I still sometimes hear insider information? Absolutely. But I don't go looking for it anymore. So basically, if I ever have inside info nowadays, it's just because someone told me, right? Someone on a project straight up DM'd me, wanted to talk to me about it, or whatever, right? There's various different ways. But there was a time in the past that I was like actively trying to search out inside info. What I ended up finding out trying to do that is that there's a couple things, right? There's a lot of egos in that game. I mean, inflated egos, okay? I'm not going to say any names because there's some people that are super nice, but there are some big egos in the whole insider group. So that kind of rubbed me wrong. And then also, there's a lot of misinformation that gets spread, like a lot, right? And whether that's intentional or whether that's unintentional, there's a lot of fake leaks going around with the real leaks. And it just became one of those things, like it became too hard for me to try and keep track of what's legit, what's not legit, what's what. So I got out of that. I literally don't ask a single person for anything insider anymore. Sometimes I still get info, but it's really just when someone's nice enough that they straight up want to talk to me about it. So they DM me about it, but I don't pursue it. But anyways, why this pertains to Elden Ring is, as someone who has done that sort of thing in the past, usually when something big hit the insider scoops, I mean, it got out. It always gets out, right? I mean, that's part of why a lot of people do the whole insider thing, is to get attention, right? Whether it's to get followers on Twitter, whether it's to get subscribers on YouTube, whether it's to get people reading your website or your publications. It's to get attention in some form for the most part. So the way you get attention is by putting it out there. So I was like, okay, if there's really a full-on trailer floating around, that's gonna leak. And lo and behold, it leaked the same day that all of this came out. First, we got like a couple short GIFs, like a really short gameplay footage, and then eventually the whole trailer, right? Basically, the whole trailer's out now. So what are my thoughts on it? Couple things. First of all, I think people are being slightly too judgmental on the footage, because keep in mind, this is clearly low quality. So the actual quality of the trailer looks like it was filmed on a Razr Motorola phone from 2001, right? From like a distance of 50 feet. Like the actual footage is just so grainy. It is so artifacted. I mean, you're not looking at what a straight up, full 4K or 1080p video would look like. So A, don't judge the overall quality too much on that. B, I will say that even with all of that in mind, graphically, I thought it did look a tad underwhelming, but there's a couple things to keep in mind with that. A, I'm sure a ton of this is placeholder, right? I mean, I'm sure a ton of this, it was just very placeholder stuff. It sounds like this trailer's from last year, and according to Jason Schreier, who's unbelievably accurate in his reporting. I mean, if you want to talk about accuracy, probably almost no one's up there with Jason. I think Jason is number one, whether you like Jason or not. You can pretty much count on, if he's reporting something, it's legit. Jason does a very good job of making sure his sources are right. And he's basically reported that it's very unlikely Elden Ring's this year. It's 2022. So if this was footage from last year, I mean, the final game, if it's 2022, could look radically different. I mean, that's still like 2 years of development from last year. So keep in mind, a lot of this is going to be placeholder, but I'm very excited for the gameplay. I mean, to me, this looks like Dark Souls 4, but in an open world. Like, that's really the vibe I got. This has very heavy Dark Souls vibes. And I'll be honest, as someone that played Demon Souls Remake and has played Sekiro, I like those, but I don't like them as much as Dark Souls. I like Dark Souls more than Sekiro, and I like Dark Souls more than Demon Souls, even the remake. So going more in that Dark Souls vein in an open world, ooh, I'm liking that. I got major Dark Souls vibes from it. But in an open world, horse combat's going to be interesting, right? The art continues to be amazing. The main thing that carries the visuals, even in this crappy quality footage, is the art design. I mean, there's some wicked looking stuff in there in terms of just artists, right? We know that even though they struggle technically, their games never are like top of the line visual games. They have amazing art design. Bloodborne, the Dark Souls games, I mean, they have fantastic art direction. So I'm excited. I'm very excited for it. So, that's a few of my thoughts. It's a bummer for them this leaked, but it was kind of inevitable if someone was really passing around a whole trailer. Like, this wasn't even just a screenshot, an entire trailer. Like, that's wild. That is wild. All right. Benji here with a 5 super chat. Benji, thoughts on the UK hardware sales this year? Pretty close between the big 3 players, right? Who will win UK this year? So Switch was the main dominator, right? 1.5 million plus for them. 450,000 for PS5, and then 310. Is that right? 310,000, something like that. I would have to double check, but right around there for the Series X and S. And then, of course, you also had Xbox One and PS4 sales on top of that as well. Here's the thing about the UK, Benji. It looks like it's all about stock. It has been wild over there, right? So we saw 1 month Switch number 1, then PS5, then Xbox. Then we saw the next month Xbox number 1, then Switch, then PS5. Then we saw the next month PS5 number 1, then Switch, then Xbox. So it's literally the past 3 months, there's been a different number 1 every single month. I have heard Switch isn't that hard to find in the UK, whereas, of course, PS5 and Xbox are. So in terms of strictly PS5 and Xbox, and who sells the most each month in the UK at least, clearly seems to be stock. Like, literally. Whoever has the most units, they're going to sell the most. So who's going to win for the year? My thought is Switch, but honestly, in the UK specifically, I could see PS5, I mean, they outsold the Switch last month, right? They did. In February, it outsold Switch. Now, it was a very close race, but what that tells you is when PlayStation has the inventory, they can surpass the Switch, at least on a month basis. So, Benji, right now, I'm going to say Switch, mainly because I think they're just going to have more inventory than PS5 and Xbox, but there is a chance that PS5 could sneak in there. I don't expect Xbox. I do expect Xbox to do well. I think it's going to do very good in the UK and the US. But I think it's going to be probably Switch with a chance of PS5 sneaking in there. Ralph Muster had a 5 super chat, but Ralph redacted it. I'm so sorry, Ralph. I'm not sure what you asked. Thank you so much, Ralph, for the super chat. Just at me. Just at me, say at Benji-Sales down in chat, and then I will get to another question for you, Ralph. It's so good to see you, and thank you for a super chat. I'm not sure what happened to your message. Oh, Ralph just dropped it again and said, I have no question. Enjoy the chat, everyone. Ralph, thank you so much. Thank you for being so supportive. You're amazing, Ralph. In the chat all the time. It's so good to see you. Big Fresh 37 with a $4.99 super chat, saying, which of the 5 Left 4 Dead likes scheduled for 2021 will succeed? Yeah, this is interesting. Dark Tide, Back 4 Blood, Second Extinction, Aliens, or Evil Dead. Yeah, there's a lot of Left 4 Dead successors this year, right? There's a lot. Now, of course, they're all going to have their own flair, but Big Fresh, that is funny because you are totally right. There are several games this year that are following in those footsteps. I would say the highest sales potential out of those is Back 4 Blood. I'll tell you what, I saw some legitimate excitement from people that are Left 4 Dead fans around that game. Now it needs to be good, especially with with a new IP, because yes, this is considered like a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, but it doesn't have Left 4 Dead in the name, right? For a lot of your more broad consumers who aren't going to know much about this game, when you see the name Back 4 Blood, you don't know what that is. So if it's good, I think out of all of these, Back 4 Blood has the highest sales potential, because to me, this looks the closest to that true Left 4 Dead experience that we haven't had in so long, right? Dark Tide could be interesting because that's going to be on Game Pass. So that has potential. I think Second Extinction's also going to be on Game Pass. So we could see possibly if those games blow up on Game Pass. Aliens, you never know what you're going to get with that franchise. You have some amazing games like what was the name of the Alien game where you were trying to escape and it was like a horror game? Came out last gen. Isolation. That game was amazing. But there's also been some utter trash Aliens games. So that one, it just depends if it's good. It could be very successful, but it needs to be good. And with Aliens, you never know. But I would say the one I'm the most bullish on, the one I think has the highest potential in sales, is Back 4 Blood. I think that has the biggest potential. Joseph Yaden, or is it Yaden or Yaden? I'm not 100% how to say your last name, Joseph. So sorry. Saying, good to see you, Benji. It's great to see you too, man. What is up? Great to see you in chat. All right. We've got about 20 minutes left to chat. So I'm going to be a little bit picky with questions just because we're coming down to the last section. But we still got about 20 minutes. So we're good. But I have to be, a little bit quick. I got to be rapid fire. And Split End, it's so good to see you, man. So good. Saying keep rocking as usual. Split End, you keep rocking. You're the best mod in the business. All right, let me see. Yeah, I want to touch on this one from Ken B. This is great. Hey, Benji, Nier Automata is still selling well and just passed 5.5 million. How do you see Nier Replicant selling? Are you into the Nier games? I adored Nier Automata. Or Automata. I never know exactly how to say it. I think it is Automata. But however you say it, I adored that game. I absolutely adored it. So I have never played the original Nier. That was my first introduction to it. What a success. 5.5 million for a game like that is massively successful. Massively successful. I adore it. I can't wait for the next one after Replicant. There's going to be another Nier game after Replicant, by the way. Been in the works for quite a while. So I'm very curious how much longer the next Nier game is going to be after Replicant. But yeah, there's another Nier game in the works too besides Replicant. And how do I think Nier Replicant's going to sell? Not near as good as Automata, because I think people really love 2B. Like, honestly, I think, what's crazy? The game itself is fantastic, but for a lot of people, the first thing that grabbed them, whether you're a fan of it or not, was 2B. I really think so. Whoever designed 2B, whoever was the art director who specifically designed 2B, they better have gotten a huge bonus, okay? Because to this day, look at how many ridiculously insane amounts of fan art and cosplay that you see for 2B. It's literally everywhere, constantly, and that game came out years ago. So people really became attached to that character even before launch, and then the fact the game was so freaking good carried it even further, right? I'm not saying 2B is the only reason, but I think 2B was an early factor in grabbing people's attention. And Replicant, is going to be a little different. So I still see it selling well. Nowhere near Automata's sales, but I think it'll get a couple million. Seriously, I think it can sell 2-3 million, something like that. But I expect the next Nier game after that to be even bigger, especially if it has 2B in some way. I think it would be very silly of them if they abandon that character. I would 100% not recommend that. Next game needs to have her in it. All right. Acreact saying, hello, Benji. What kind of sales do you expect from Elden Ring? Do you think the hype surrounding it will lead to From Software's best-selling game yet? It could. Acreact, it could. Because here's the thing. Not only does it have insane hype from being a From game, but also it's open world. And if there's one thing we have learned over the last 10 years is people love open world games. If you look at the best selling games, not every game's open world, but a lot of them are open world, right? People love that stuff. So you're taking From's formula that so many people already love. You're also connecting that to an open world, which so many people love. I would say it has potential. Am I going to lock that in? We haven't seen anywhere near enough, right? Nowhere near enough. So I'm not going to say that's a lock, but I would say there's potential there. Yeah, there is potential for it to be, at least at launch, and maybe even permanently, the biggest debut ever for a From game. I mean, that there's definitely potential for that, 100%. All right, let's see here. Let's see here. I'm seeing a bunch of at Benji-Sales. I want to see those ones really quick. See what we're getting. Oh, okay. JCat wanting to bring How Much Sleep Forward's question to more prominence because How Much Sleep Forward does not have a super chat option in their country. So thank you, JCat, for tagging that. And Hamish wanted to know if someone will ask a short question with Super Chat, can you add thoughts on new Halo Infinite footage? Super Chat isn't available in my country, lol. Hamish Lee Ford, the new Halo Infinite screenshots look good. I have seen some people trying to underplay it, saying that it's basically the same game. It looks the exact same. It only looks different because of the time of day. No. There are noticeable improvements in this compared to the original gameplay footage. Noticeable. Textures have definitely seen improvements, including on the weapons. That's one thing that definitely stands out. Lighting overall to me looks improved. It looks a lot less flat. Now, is it ray traced mind blowing? I don't know about that, but the main complaint with the original Halo Infinite footage was it looked unbelievably flat, right? And it didn't matter whether they were showing what area. Everything looked flat. The lighting looked much more convincing to me in these new screenshots. So textures definitely saw some improvements. Lighting saw a definite improvement, no doubt about that. And I also thought vegetation density looked better too. And multiple of those screenshots, I noticed that there was a lot more vegetation in there, like a lot denser of the foliage. And then also on top of that, also I would say that the color palette looked a lot better, right? It looked less drab. It looked more like Halo. When I saw those Halo Infinite screenshots, I was like, dude, this looks like Halo. Like, this looks like, when I think Halo in my head, this looks Halo. So to me, it looks way better. Now, can we draw 100% firm conclusions without seeing actual footage? No. So I think we need to be careful to not go too crazy, but I'll tell you, it looked to me like a giant improvement just overall aesthetically. I'm not saying that each individual piece was an enormous jump, right? I'm not saying, whoa, the textures went from this to like 20 times better. But overall, as a package, whenever you look at that original Halo footage and then you look at these new Halo screenshots, I definitely saw a very big jump. I thought it looked much better overall. So let's wait until we see actual gameplay footage to flat out say it's gonna look as good as those screenshots did or even better. But I will tell you what, it made me a lot more confident in that game seeing that. So encouraging signs. I'm guessing we're going to see that game this summer. I don't think they're going to show it before that. I don't think so. I think like a long footage component again, because I think the next time Microsoft shows this, they want it to look as good as possible, right? They're going to want the next time you see Halo Infinite footage running for your jaw to drop, right? Compared to the original, whenever you are like, wow, this looks better. So they're going to want to take their time before they really fully showcase it again. So I would say this summer, it's probably going to be when we see it next. A lot of people are asking about Battlefield 6. So I'm going to kind of combine. I saw some questions up above. Let me see. I'm going to combine a couple. Man, where did that go? There's a ton of questions in chat. Sorry, everyone. It's so hard for me to hit everyone's questions in these chats. Yeah, so Danger Man saying, wonder if Battlefield 6 will be talked about with DICE, Stockholm, LA, and Criterion on it. And then Danger Man also added in later on, Battlefield 6 be one of the next-gen non-first party games this year, question mark. Reason being is that cross-gen Battlefield 6, especially if it's like 128 players and full-on destruction and development issues that may arise of doing cross-gen, either having to put in post-launch support or low MTX, basically just asking, when are we going to see the next Battlefield 6? And also, is it going to be cross-gen only? So we're going to see it soon. They said that they're going to show it this spring, and that's soon. So we're basically entering spring right now. Of course, that depends on your, where you live, right? Not everyone's going into spring, but a company like EA, which is headquartered out of the US, whenever they're talking spring, they're talking about, when the United States is going to hit spring. We're basically entering that right now, right? March, April, May is our spring time frame. So we're going to see it soon. Within the next few months, yeah, they're going to show Battlefield 6. They've basically already confirmed that. Is it going to be next-gen only? I don't know. I don't know if they have specifically stated if this is going to be cross-gen or not. But one thing they have repeatedly said is that they are heavily taking advantage of next-gen. Like, every time they talk about this game, they've really pushed how it's going to be a next-gen experience. So here's what I'll say, Danger Man. I don't know if this is going to be cross-gen or not. But my hunch, and I hate to say this, if it is cross-gen, I suspect the last-gen versions are going to be heavily compromised. Like, I don't think that last-gen version is going to hold up very well to the next-gen one. I could be wrong, but the vibe I get from the way EA talks about this every single time. I mean, seriously, if you look at any interview with EA about DICE, or not about DICE, about Battlefield 6, all they talk about is the next generation of Battlefield, pushing the next-gen systems hard, unparalleled levels of destruction, right? Like, they're going all out. So put it this way. If it's cross-gen, that last-gen version is going to be, I think, way compromised compared to what PS5 and Series X are getting. Maybe half the player counts and maybe like, way less destruction and things like this. I could see something like that. Clearly, their focus is next-gen. The Big Low saying, Benji-Sales, the EU decision for Microsoft/Zenimax deal. I expect to hear of something within the week of closing. Yeah, that's right around the corner, Big Low. We are going to hear some big stuff about this Bethesda acquisition very soon. It's going to be done by the end of the month, and we're already in the 4th. So, yeah, I expect to hear some big announcements here, even as soon as within the next few days, week, 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm not saying, hey, everyone, you're going to see Starfield next week. I'm saying, yeah, we're going to start to get some stuff. This Zenimax deal is on the verge of completing. We are in the final stages. That is almost done. Almost locked in, done. And yeah, I would not worry about anything that's going on with that whole, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a big court case and stuff that's trying to get done over there about it, but nothing's going to slow that down. It's done. It's basically done. Isildur's Bane. Benji, why does everyone make such a big deal about Japan? The Switch's numbers are actually not as good as the Wii were there. I'd be more concerned with getting into Korea, who are at the forefront of tech. Isildur's Bane, Japan is still an enormous market. Enormous. So, people, I do think that there is a point to be made there, Isildur's Bane, that some people put a little too much emphasis on Japan sales. And I think part of that is because it's really the most transparent market for numbers. If you've noticed, NPD sales discussion has completely collapsed, right? I'm a long haul guy when it comes to talking about sales. I've been talking about sales online since 2000 and, man, I think I first started joining forums talking about video game sales in 2006. If I'm recalling right, 2006 was when I first got online talking about video game sales. So that's how many years? 10, you know, I mean, you're talking like 15 years. I have been a very active member of the video game sales community, right? Very active, literally since 2006, I believe. And yeah, I mean, NPD discussion used to be a big deal, and now it is like nothing. Like, there is barely anything that's generated by NPD discussion nowadays. Even in shocking months, even in crazy months, you're seeing just a low amount of discussion. And a big part of that is there's no numbers, right? There's no numbers attached, nothing. You don't get the hardware numbers unless someone leaks it. And if they leak it, you got to know where to find that leak. Same thing with software, right? You get rankings. Everything gets rankings, but there's no units. So that has essentially killed NPD discussion. It still exists. You can talk about it in a broad way, but even if you get leaks, like sometimes I do, and you want to be cautious, right? Because I don't want to screw over NPD because they don't make anything public. I can't really talk about it, right? In general, you see me talk about things in a broad way. So it's killed it. Whereas Japan, there are constant numbers. You constantly get a weekly update on exact hardware numbers, and you constantly get a weekly update on exact software numbers. So the reason it gets so much discussion is because there's a lot of charts on it. You know, there's a lot of data you can dig into. So I think that's really part of it. And then also Sealder's Bane, it is still a big market. I mean, you're still talking, I mean, what's Switch up to now in Japan? What are they up to? What's the lifetime sales in Japan now? It's up to, let me double check right off the top of my head. I want to give you the exact right one. Yeah, it's up to, you know, it's almost at 20 million. It's at 18.5 million consoles in Japan. I mean, that's a freaking lot of consoles for one market. So I do get you, Sealder's Bane. I do think that there is some overemphasis put on Japan, but it's still huge. You're still talking about the number one console can sell, you know, over 18 million units in 4 years. And then you've also, like I said, you got all those charts. So it gives people a lot to talk about. There ain't a lot to talk about with NPD. You can talk about the ranking, and that's about it. Matt Borges here with an awesome question, a fun one. Benji, hope you're well. The people need to know, what is your favorite dinosaur? Ooh, what a good question. Favorite dino? You know, when I was a kid, I was pretty attached to the Stegosaurus, right? I don't know its exact technical name, okay? So anyone that's, you know, dinosaur junkies here, I was a big Stegosaurus guy, really liked it. Of course, you got to go with the traditional, you know, go-to T-Rex. There's just something about T-Rex that's pretty sweet. Raptors are sweet, right? I grew up watching Jurassic Park, and of course the raptors are such a big part of that. Velociraptors, right? Even though they weren't quite how Jurassic Park portrays them. I'll say everything, you know, they're cool. Dinosaurs are freaking sweet. There's nowhere near enough games about dinosaurs. Where's Dino Crisis? But yeah, if I had to pick one, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I might go with the lazy T-Rex answer. I don't know. Maybe. How much time we got? A minute or an hour 17. We're coming down to the wire. West Egg saying, I saw Matt Piscatella was saying people are sleeping on how big of a hit Mario 3D World is. Not if you're following me. Are you expecting it to be an overall top seller this year? Yes, West Egg. Yep, I have been reporting on this as best as I can. Out of the markets we have data for, and some of the stuff I've seen is going to be big. Yeah, Super Mario 3D World in multiple markets has launched 2 to 3 times the size of the original release. Data looks like that the actual launch was probably slightly behind 3D All-Stars, but I've also seen signs that Mario 3D World is having better legs than All-Stars. There's a big, really heavy early push, I think, because of Nintendo announcing that launch window being very tight, or not launch window, it's total sales, like when they're going to cut it off. They gave an end date, and I think that made some people, even though it's quite a ways off when they first announced it, rush out and buy it. 3D World, I think, has had better legs and follow-up weeks than All-Stars has globally, just at what I can see. So yeah, it's going to be huge. Yeah, it's going to be huge. I mean, 3D All-Stars is going to do over 10 million units in 9 months, right? That game, yeah, Yeah, when did that come out? It came out in September? Yeah, or whatever the time frame is on that. It's going to do over 10 million from whenever it came out. So, 3D World's going to sell over 10 million. Yeah, it's going to sell over 10 mil. 100%. 100% it's going to sell over 10 million. Eventually. This year, probably. I'd say 8 million is the absolute floor for this year. Like, very conservative. I'd be surprised if it went as low as 8 million. But that's the floor. It ain't going to sell less than that. And it could sell over 10 million this year. So, big. Yeah, big. Very big. Diagazo saying, I might be wrong, but my perception is that Ghost of Tsushima is having better legs than The Last of Us 2. That is correct. Is that the case? What do you think, Benji? Not hating on The Last of Us 2, by the way. Overall, Diagazo, you are correct. Now, there has been a few cases where that hasn't been, where you've seen other things. For example, The Last of Us Part 2 in the UK had a huge week last week, right? Giant jump. But if you're talking overall legs, yes. Ghost of Tsushima has had better legs than The Last of Us. You are definitely correct on that. And that's not hating on The Last of Us. I agree. Not hating on it at all. I love that game. But if we're talking overall legs, Last of Us launched bigger. Ghost of Tsushima's legs have been better. I'm going to squeeze in like one or two more questions, and then I got to bounce. Thank you for another amazing chat, everyone. I'm going to try and get two more questions, then I got to go. This isn't going to count as a question, but I want to give a shout out to Legendary No Sleep for an incredibly kind comment saying, hey, Benji, hope you and your family are doing great. Thanks for all the Twitter content. I love it. Thank you, Legendary No Sleep. I love doing it. These live chats are my favorite thing I do. I'd much rather prefer this than doing Twitter. Don't get me wrong, I love Twitter, and my Twitter's way bigger, but this to me feels very interactive, right? I mean, I feel like I know y'all now. As crazy as that might sound, I feel like a lot of us feel like we know each other, right? I see so many names every week in chat. It's amazing. Ooh, this is interesting here. Vias saying, Benji, how much do you think George R.R. Martin's name will boost Elden Ring? This is interesting. Also, if Elden Ring is near the quality of Dark Souls 3 Sekiro, okay, so we kind of answered the second part earlier when I was talking about overall sales. But this is a great question. How much will George R.R. Martin's name boost Elden Ring? Here's the thing. It is 100% going to get the attention of people that are not traditionally Souls fans. Regardless of however people feel about Game of Thrones, I thought that show ended horribly. I hated the last season, but I was an enormous Game of Thrones fan. No matter what, a name like George R.R. Martin, that gets eyeballs, okay? That gets eyeballs. Does it guarantee success? No, but it guarantees that someone that potentially has never played a From game, if they like Martin's work, are going to at least look at it, right? Maybe they're not going to buy it, but they're going to perk up more than they would have if they just heard from the creators of Dark Souls, right? So I definitely think it has potential good impact having him involved, especially if you get him in on the marketing. Right now, he hasn't done any appearance with the game or anything like that, right? We've only seen a CG trailer and then now this leaked thing. But only other thing is his name's attached to it. If you put out a sweet trailer where you have an actual footage of George R.R. Martin talking about this game and also showing gameplay underneath it and talking about what he has contributed to, things he has done in this game, yeah, I think you could get a lot of eyeballs on that. A lot. I think you get a lot of people. So I feel like they need to really incorporate him on the marketing. I absolutely would. If I was FromSoft, I would be doing that kind of stuff. All right, last question. Let me pull one more. I'm going to pull one more. And then we're out. Sorry, I wish I could answer a million more questions, but I got to go. Okay, here's a good one here right at the end. The Biglow 25 saying, with Sony pulling out of Japan development wise and Microsoft looking to increase development in Japan, how will the next few years be for both companies, especially with that Bloomberg? So here's the thing. I feel like we still don't know for sure how Sony's viewing their development in Japan, right? We know that there are some things that are a little alarming. First of all, the whole restructuring going down at Japan Studio, how they're really going to be focusing around the team that does Astrobot. And it sounds like, yeah, that they're like the actual Japan Studio side of things, they are greatly decreasing internally. My hunch, though, Biglow, like we've seen with the Final Fantasy VII Remake deal, and then like we've seen with Final Fantasy 16, I think Sony might get more aggressive in locking in third-party Japanese games. Now, this is just a guess, but I think Sony sees it at internally. If you look at the games that Japan Studio put out, I'm going to be honest. I love Japan Studio being there. I love them having just a unique twist compared to Sony's other teams. Their games were definitely a different vibe than what Naughty Dog and, Sony Santa Monica and Sucker Punch and things like this are doing, right? It was just a different feel. They weren't huge successes, right? Sony is going to be looking at their internal teams and they're going to be saying, look at how much Guerrilla took Horizon to the next level. Look at how much Sony Santa Monica made God of War the next level in sales. Look at how Naughty Dog has turned Uncharted and The Last of Us into giant sellers. Look at how Sucker Punch has made Ghost of Tsushima a giant seller, right? Like their other studios have just really been accelerating in terms of sales, and Japan Studio was not keeping up. So I think that's kind of why. I mean, if Japan Studio was out there pumping out games that sold 10 million units, trust me, this whole restructuring thing wouldn't happen, okay? If that game selling 10, 15 million units, Sony would be giving Japan Studio a ton of support. But I feel like they're like, hey, our team, on our Japanese development side's not exactly taking off the way our Western side is. So my hunch is you're going to see them still lock in a lot of these third-party Japanese deals for games that they feel like are very valuable, right? Like I said earlier, Persona 6, I still think Persona 6 will not be on Switch. Spinoffs like Strikers, sure. But Persona 6 itself, I think that's PlayStation exclusive. So that's my thought on that. In terms of Microsoft wanting to increase it, it's basically them just trying to get more third-party support, right? They're trying to get games like Persona to come to Xbox. They're trying to get games like we've seen successfully get Yakuza and Final Fantasy and stuff like that on their platform. So, it's a bit of two different thoughts, but I would not expect Microsoft to come anywhere close, even with Sony, going down in how much support, how much investment I would say they're doing on the Japanese side. Xbox still just has like no presence there. So don't expect, I would say, like Xbox to just be getting all kinds of exclusive games from Japan and stuff like that. It's not going to happen unless Microsoft spends a fortune, like a fortune. Here's the thing. Microsoft would have to spend almost more money for like a Japanese exclusive game percentage wise than they would for like a Western game, because the fact is those Japanese games, if you go exclusive to Xbox, you're losing a vast bulk of your sales. Like Microsoft's basically have to pay for the entire development of the game, like completely. We're paying for your 100% development to make this game exclusive. Whereas Sony, I feel like a game is still going to sell a lot, right? Like on the PlayStation regardless. So you can probably get an exclusive for cheaper than Microsoft would have to pay, because you're going to lose so much sales. So yeah. Anyways, that's my thoughts. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for another amazing live chat. It's so good to be here. So good to see everyone. So good to see so many familiar names. Like the video if you like doing these live chats. We do one every single week. Subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed yet. I'm trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. We're stalled out right around 2.7K. We've been there for like the last 3 months, so goal is 3K. We've kind of stagnated, which is fine. I mean, even getting any subscribers to me is super overwhelmingly awesome, but we're trying to still keep things going up. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, Follow me on Twitter if you don't already. I am Benji-Sales. I talk about video games in general, particularly with the sales and business focus, but I just talk about gaming in general as well. Thanks to everyone. Hope you had fun in the chat, and I will see you next time on YouTube or on Twitter. Stay safe, play some games, and I will see you all very, very soon, everyone. Thank you. Bye.